You won't believe what happened when a hard-working man simply tried to do his job right. A simple ride-hailing service turned into the worst nightmare anyone could imagine, and I guarantee what you'll discover at the end of this story will leave you completely shocked. What I'm about to tell you really happened, and it forever changed the way I see the people around me. This is the story of Marcus, a man who discovered the hard way how a simple misunderstanding can destroy an entire life. It was a typical Friday, the kind that promises a quiet weekend. Marcus was in his car, a silver sedan that had seen better days, waiting for another ride. The dashboard clock read 9 p.m., and he knew he still had to work late to meet his goal for the day. 42 years old, the father of 2 young children, Marcus had left his factory job 6 months earlier to dedicate himself full-time to the app. The promise of higher earnings and more flexible hours had convinced him, especially after his wife Anna lost her job during the pandemic. The rented apartment in a poor neighborhood, the monthly bills, the private school he insisted on supporting, all of this weighed heavily on Marcus's shoulders. He dreamed of saving enough money to open a small business, perhaps a mechanic's shop, since he'd always had a knack for cars. But for now, each race was a small victory in the daily battle for survival. His phone vibrated. A new ride was requested. Marcus glanced at the screen. 15-minute ride, decent price, 5-star passenger. He immediately accepted and directed the car to the indicated address, an imposing office building downtown, the kind with a uniformed doorman and a gleaming marble entrance hall. As he drove through the busy streets, Marcus thought about the conversation he'd had with Anna earlier. She was worried about the month's expenses, especially after the air conditioning had broken and they couldn't afford to fix it. "Maybe it's time for you to look for a steady job again," she'd suggested. But Marcus knew he couldn't give up now. He needed to prove to himself and to his family that he could make it on his own. Arriving at the building, Marcus parked in front and sent the standard text message informing him he had arrived. It wasn't long before a man emerged from the front door. It was impossible not to notice the difference between them. The passenger wore a suit that probably cost more than Marcus's 2-month salary, gleaming Italian leather shoes, and carried a genuine leather briefcase. His grey hair was perfectly combed, and a gold watch gleamed on his left wrist. Ricardo, that was the name that appeared on the app, opened the back door and got in without even saying hello. He immediately pulled out his cell phone, a top-of-the-line model that Marcus recognized from the windows of the most expensive stores, and began talking loudly, as if he were alone in the vehicle. Yes, the 2 million contract is practically sealed," Ricardo said arrogantly over the phone. "These small business owners don't understand anything about real business. Just push a little and they'll accept anything." Marcus adjusted the rearview mirror and began the drive, trying to focus on the traffic, but it was hard to ignore the conversation. Ricardo kept talking about business, astronomical sums, decisions that could break lesser people. There was something in the way he spoke that deeply bothered Marcus. It wasn't just arrogance, it was pure contempt for people he considered inferior. "These ride-hailing drivers," Ricardo commented during a pause in the call, looking directly into the rearview mirror where he could see Marcus's eyes, "don't know what real work is. They drive all day thinking they're running a business." He laughed sarcastically. "Real business is what I do, moving millions, creating jobs for hundreds of people." Marcus felt his blood boil, but he remained silent. He'd learned over the months that disrespectful customers were part of the job, and it wasn't worth making a fuss over. He needed the 5-star rating. He needed the money. He took a deep breath and continued driving, focusing on the low music playing on the radio. The journey continued with Ricardo making more calls, always in a condescending tone, always talking about money and power. At one point, he said to someone on the other end of the line, "I don't understand why people complain about unemployment. You just have to have the will to work. Look at this driver here. At least he's working instead of begging." The words hit Marcus like a punch to the gut. He wanted to stop the car and say everything he thought, talk about his technical training, his years of experience at the factory, how he had made the courageous decision to become an entrepreneur. He wanted to talk about his dreams, about the workshop he planned to open, about how he was fighting honestly to give his family a better life. But he held back. Professionalism was more important at that moment. During another phone call, Ricardo casually mentioned, "My wife is at home organizing our trip to Europe, 3 weeks of checking out the best restaurants and hotels. It's good to be rich, isn't it?" He chuckled to himself at his own joke, apparently thinking he was quite witty. Marcus thought of Anna, who hadn't bought herself a new outfit in months, always prioritizing the children's needs. She thought of last weekend when she promised to take the kids to the amusement park, but had to cancel because she had no money left after paying the basic bills. The difference between their worlds was stark, but Marcus had never felt envy, only a greater determination to improve his life through his own efforts. Traffic was heavier than usual, and the trip that should have taken 15 minutes was now stretching over 20. Ricardo began to show impatience, constantly checking his watch and making sarcastic comments about the driver's incompetence in choosing the best route. Marcus politely explained the unexpected traffic, but Ricardo only grumbled something about people who don't know how to work properly. Finally, they reached their destination, another office building, even more imposing than the first. Ricardo put his phone in his briefcase, straightened his suit, and prepared to leave. Before opening the door, he glanced at Marcus through the rearview mirror and said, "I hope you learned something from observing successful people like me. Maybe one day you'll be able to escape this life." Marcus simply nodded, hoping this unpleasant experience would soon be over. Ricardo quickly got out of the car, slammed the door with unnecessary force, and hurriedly walked toward the building without saying goodbye or thanking him for his service. Immediately, Marcus received the payment notification for the ride. To his surprise, Ricardo had given only a 3-star rating and had left no tip, even though he was clearly a wealthy man. The comment simply read, "Slow driver, needs improvement." Sitting there, still processing the unpleasant experience he had just endured, Marcus had no idea that this wouldn't be the last he'd hear from Ricardo. He didn't know that within hours, his life would be turned upside down in ways he could never have imagined. At that moment, Marcus just wanted to forget that bad race and move on. He had bills to pay, dreams to fulfill, and a family to support. It was just another day at work for an honest man trying to make it in life. But sometimes, my friends, life has very different plans than ours. And what was about to happen to Marcus would be something that would change not only his life, but also the way he saw the world around him forever. After that unpleasant encounter with Ricardo, Marcus continued working through the night, trying to forget the offensive comments and focus on what really mattered, supporting his family. He never imagined those would be the last moments of peace he'd have in a long time. It was almost 2 in the morning when Marcus finally decided to call it a day. He'd managed to complete 12 trips that day, which meant he could pay his overdue electricity bill and still have some left over for the week's groceries. Driving home, he felt satisfied with his work, despite the unpleasant experience with the arrogant passenger. The apartment was quiet when he arrived. Anna and the children were fast asleep. Marcus took a quick shower, ate a sandwich Anna had left in the fridge for him, and went to bed. Before falling asleep, he spent a few minutes gazing at his wife's serene face, promising himself that one day he would give her the comfortable life she deserved. The next morning, Saturday, Marcus woke up later than usual. His children, 8-year-old John and 6-year-old Mary, were already playing in the living room while Anna prepared breakfast. It was one of the few moments of the week when the family could be together without rushing, and Marcus treasured these precious hours. "Daddy, can you take us to the park today?" asked little Maria, her eyes shining with hope. "Of course, my princess," Marcus replied, lifting his daughter onto his lap. How about after lunch? Anna smiled as she watched her husband interact with the children. Despite all their financial hardships, they had a close-knit and happy family. Was yesterday a good day at work? She asked, serving coffee. Yes, it was, Marcus half lied, preferring not to talk about Ricardo. I managed to do a good number of runs. We'll be able to catch up on the bills. It was almost 10 in the morning when Marcus's phone rang. It was an unknown number, but he answered it, thinking it might be a passenger wanting to request a ride directly. Hello? Is this Marcus? Marcus Silva, the app driver. The voice on the other end was serious, official. Yes, it's me. Who's speaking? This is Investigator Roberto from the Central Police Station. You need to come here today to provide clarification on an incident. Marcus's heart raced. What do you mean? What kind of incident? A police report has been filed against you. Charge of theft. Did you transport a passenger named Ricardo Mendez last night? The world seemed to collapse around Marcus in that moment. His legs went weak and he had to sit down on the kitchen chair. Ina, sensing something was wrong, approached with concern written all over her face. Yes, I transported this gentleman yesterday. But what accusation is this? I didn't steal anything. Look, Mr. Marcus, I can't give you many details over the phone, but you need to come here today to clarify the situation. The passenger claims his cell phone disappeared after the ride, and you were the last person to have contact with him. Marcus felt like he was living a nightmare. Investigator, this is absurd. I'm a hard-working man. I have a family. I've never stolen anything in my life. Mr. Marcus, I understand your indignation, but I need you to come here so we can resolve this properly. The sooner the better for everyone. After hanging up the phone, Marcus was in shock. Anna was beside him, holding his hand, tears in her eyes. What's up, love? What's going on? With a broken voice, Marcus told her about the call. Anna couldn't hold back her tears. This can't be happening to us. You're the most honest person I know. The children, sensing the tense atmosphere, approached their parents. Why is Mommy crying? Asked John, confused. Marcus hugged the whole family, trying to convey a sense of reassurance he didn't feel himself. It's going to be okay. It's just a misunderstanding. Dad will sort it out. But deep down, he was terrified. He knew stories of honest people whose lives had been destroyed by false accusations. And now it seemed like it was his turn to face this terrible reality. At the police station, Marcus was met by Investigator Roberto, a middle-aged man with a skeptical expression. Next to him was Ricardo, who wore another expensive suit and maintained a posture of superiority. That's him, Ricardo said, pointing at Marcus with disdain. He was the last one to have contact with my cell phone. A 3,000 real device that simply disappeared. Marcus felt his anger rise, but he controlled himself. Mr. Investigator, I swear on my children's lives that I didn't take any cell phone. This man got out of my car with all your stuff. Ricardo laughed sarcastically. Of course you'll deny it. You always do. You know what the problem is? You think you can take our stuff and we'll never find out. You who? Marcus retorted, feeling his blood boil. What are you talking about? Don't act like you don't understand, Ricardo replied dismissively. People like you who live in such precarious situations always find a way to take advantage of others. The investigator intervened. Mr. Ricardo, let's stay focused on the incident. Mr. Marcus, do you have any proof that you didn't take the cell phone? How can I prove something I didn't do? This man got into my car, talked on the phone the whole trip, got out of the car, and drove away. How can I prove he left with the phone? Exactly what a thief would say, Ricardo commented. Investigator, I want you to search his car. I'm sure you'll find my device. Marcus immediately authorized the search. You can search everything. My house too, if you want. I have nothing to hide. 2 police officers searched Marcus's car thoroughly, but found nothing. Ricardo seemed genuinely surprised. He must have hidden it somewhere else or already sold it. Mr. "Ricardo," said the investigator, "we didn't find the device in the vehicle. Are you sure you had the cell phone with you when you got out of the car?" "Of course I'm sure. I use that phone all the time for work. I clearly remember making several calls during the trip." Marcus remembered Ricardo's constant calls and confirmed, "It's true, he talked on the phone almost the entire trip. But when he got out of the car, he went all out." "See?" Ricardo said, satisfied. "He himself confirms that I had the phone. If I don't have it now, it's because he took it." The investigator asked them both several questions, taking careful notes. Finally, he said to Marcus, "Sir, I'm opening an inquiry to further investigate this situation. You can't leave town until we resolve this." Marcus left the police station devastated. The news spread quickly among other ride-hailing drivers in the area. Some colleagues expressed solidarity, but others began to avoid him, afraid of associating with someone accused of theft. In the following days, the situation worsened dramatically. The app company, following its strict policies, temporarily suspended Marcus's account while the investigation was ongoing. This meant he had lost his only source of income. "How are we going to pay the bills?" Anna asked desperately, looking at the bills that arrived daily. "I'll get another job," Marcus promised, but he knew it would be difficult. Word had spread through the neighborhood, and some neighbors were already looking at him suspiciously. During a trip to the supermarket, Marcus overheard two ladies whispering, "That's the one over there, the one who stole the passenger's cell phone. I always thought he was a bit strange." The humiliation was constant. At the children's school, other parents began to talk. Jerome came home crying one day. "Daddy, the boys at school are saying you're a thief." Marcus hugged his son, heartbroken. "Dad's not a thief, my son. Dad's an honest man. Sometimes people say bad things about us when they don't really know us." A week had passed since the accusation, and Marcus had knocked on the doors of dozens of businesses looking for work. In many places, as soon as they searched his name online, they discovered the accusation and made excuses not to hire him. Anna, seeing her husband's desperation, suggested, "Marcus, maybe you should get a lawyer. This can't go on like this." "With what money? Do you know how much a lawyer costs?" Marcus was visibly dejected. The confident, hard-working man was being replaced by someone defeated by circumstances. That's when her older sister, Lucia, offered help. "I know a lawyer who can give a free consultation. Let's at least talk to him." The lawyer, Dr. Fernando, listened attentively to the entire story. "Marcus, your case is complicated because it's your word against his. Without concrete proof of your innocence, it will be difficult." "But doctor, I didn't do anything. How can I prove something that didn't happen?" That's exactly the problem. In a situation like this, the accuser has to prove it, but the suspicion surrounding you has already been created. We need to find a way to demonstrate your integrity, or preferably find out what really happened to the cell phone. Marcus left the lawyer's office even more worried. How could he pay the fees? How could he prove his innocence? It seemed he was trapped in a trap with no way out. 2 weeks after the accusation, the family situation was untenable. Marcus had used up all their savings, and the bills were piling up. Anna had gotten some cleaning jobs to help out, but it wasn't enough. "I can't take this situation anymore," Anna blurted out one night after the children had gone to bed. "It's not fair what they're doing to you, to our family." Marcus hugged her, feeling the weight of responsibility. "I'll prove my innocence, love. I don't know how, but I will." But could he? What if the person truly responsible for the phone's disappearance was never discovered? What if Marcus had to carry this accusation for the rest of his life? My friends, so far you've only seen the beginning of this unbelievable story. Marcus was living his worst nightmare, watching his reputation, his family, and his dreams being destroyed by an accusation he knew to be false. But you have no idea what's yet to come. Stay with me until the end of this story, because the twist that follows is so stunning it will leave you speechless. The truth about what really happened to that cell phone is something no one, not even me, could have imagined when this story began. 3 weeks had passed since that fateful call from the police station, and Marcus's life had turned into a living hell. What began as a simple misunderstanding now seemed to have taken on a life of its own, snowballing into a spiral that threatened to bury everything he held dear. That Monday morning, Marcus woke before his alarm, as had become routine since the beginning of this situation. Sleep had become a rare luxury, constantly interrupted by nightmares of himself, handcuffed, being taken away from his family. Beside him, Anna was also awake, staring at the ceiling with eyes red from crying. "Didn't you sleep again?" Marcus asked, running his hand affectionately through his wife's hair. "How can I sleep, knowing our lives are falling apart?" Anna turned to him, and Marcus could see how much weight she had lost in the last few weeks. "Marcus, yesterday Mrs. Teresa stopped me in the hallway of the building and said that other residents are talking about you. They're scared." These words hit Marcus like knives. Donna Teresa was a 70-year-old woman who always greeted him affectionately, who always asked about the children. Now even she was afraid of him. What exactly did she say? That some women in the building don't want to ride the elevator alone with you anymore. That they're thinking of starting a petition to get the building manager to increase security. Anna started crying again. "Marcus, how did we get to this point? How did our lives turn into this?" Marcus hugged his wife, but he himself had no answer. How could an honest, hard-working man, a family man, find himself transformed into a threat in the eyes of his own neighbors? How could a simple, unsubstantiated accusation have such destructive power? The children woke up shortly afterward, and Marcus had to feign normalcy during breakfast. But little Maria, with her childlike sensitivity, sensed something was wrong. "Daddy, why are you sad all the time now?" she asked, climbing onto Marcus's lap. "Daddy isn't sad, my princess. Daddy is just worried about some work stuff." "But you're not working anymore," said John, with the frankness typical of an 8-year-old. "Why don't you drive the car anymore?" Marcus felt a lump in his throat. How could he explain to a child that his father was being wrongly accused? How could he preserve his children's innocence amidst this storm? "It's just temporary, my son. Daddy will be back to work soon." But Marcus knew this was far from the truth. That same morning, he had a meeting scheduled with investigator Roberto for a new round of questioning. The investigation had extended, and new evidence had emerged. Arriving at the police station, Marcus was greeted not only by investigator Roberto, but also by a public prosecutor, Dr. Carla, a serious-looking woman who greeted him formally. "Mr. Marcus," said the investigator, "some new facts have come to light that we would like to clarify with you." "What kind of facts?" Marcus felt his heart race. The prosecutor opened a file and began reading, "We have received information that you have had problems with other passengers. A passenger reported that you made inappropriate comments during a trip 2 months ago." Marcus was genuinely confused. "What do you mean? What kind of comments?" "According to her account, you asked personal questions about her life, where she worked, how much she earned. She felt uncomfortable. I always make polite conversation with passengers. It's part of good service. I've never done anything inappropriate." Marcus was indignant. How can a polite conversation be turned into something suspicious? The investigator continued, "We also checked your financial history. You have several overdue bills, don't you?" "So what? Half of Brazil is behind on its bills. That doesn't make me a thief." "But it creates a motive," the prosecutor said coldly. A financially desperate man sees an expensive cell phone in his car and decides to solve his problems. "This is absurd. You're creating a story in your heads." Marcus was visibly upset. "Where's the evidence? Where's the cell phone? Why don't you look for what really happened instead of accusing me based on assumptions?" "Mr. Marcus," the investigator said more sternly, "your alteration isn't helping at all. We're just investigating all possibilities." The meeting lasted more than 2 hours, with repetitive questions, attempts to find contradictions in Marcus's account, and insinuations about his nature and character. When he was finally released, Marcus left the police station feeling even more humiliated and desperate. On the way home, he stopped at a square and called his lawyer, Dr. Fernando. "Doctor, they're trying to build a case against me based on speculation and supposition. They're combing through my entire life looking for anything that might incriminate me." "Marcus, unfortunately, that's how it works. When there's no concrete evidence, they try to build a circumstantial profile. You need to stay calm and consistent in your story." "But doctor, how long will this last? My family is destroyed. I can't find work. The neighbors are afraid of me. This can't go on." "I'm working on your case, Marcus. But I have to be honest, without finding out what really happened to that phone, it's going to be very difficult to clear your name completely." When he arrived home, Marcus found Anna crying in the kitchen, with a letter in her hands. "What now?" asked Marcus, fearing the worst. "It's from the children's school," Anna said through tears. "The principal wants to talk to us. Some parents are worried and what? And they are questioning whether it is appropriate for our children to continue studying there." Marcus felt like he'd been punched in the gut. Now the situation was directly affecting his innocent children. "They can't do this. Hansel and Gretel have nothing to do with this." "I know, Marcus, but people are scared. The news has spread throughout the whole city. Yesterday, Carla's mother, Maria's classmate, told me that she doesn't want her daughter to come play here anymore." That night, after the children fell asleep, Marcus and Anna had one of the most difficult conversations of their lives. "Marcus," Anna said, in a tired voice he'd never heard before, "I need to ask you a question, and I need you to be completely honest with me." Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. "What question?" "Do you swear to God, to our children, that you didn't take that cell phone?" The world seemed to stop for Marcus in that moment. Realizing that even his own wife was beginning to doubt him was the most devastating blow of all. "Anna," he said, his voice breaking, "how can you ask me that question? After 15 years together, do you really think I'd be capable of something like that?" "No, Marcus, I don't think so, but all this pressure, all these accusations, sometimes I find myself thinking, what if there's something I don't know? What if—" "Stop!" Marcus shouted, louder than he intended. "Don't finish that sentence. I'm your husband. I'm the father of your children. How can you doubt me?" Anna began to cry uncontrollably. "I don't want to doubt, but I'm desperate, Marcus. Our lives are ending, the children are suffering, and I don't know what to think anymore." Marcus got out of bed and went to the living room, where he spent the night awake on the sofa, thinking about how his life had turned into a nightmare. If even Anna was doubting him, what was left? The next morning, things got even worse. Marcus went to the bakery where he always bought bread for his family, and the baker, Jose, who had known him for years, was cold to him. "Good morning, Mr. Jose." "Good morning," he replied dryly without his usual smile. "The usual, please. 2 French loaves and a liter of milk." Jose took the items without looking directly at Marcus. "They're 8 reais." While Marcus was searching for money in his wallet, he heard 2 customers talking. "It's him, Dona Rosa, the one who stole the businessman's cell phone." "How absurd! And he still has the nerve to walk around as if nothing had happened." "They say the police are already sure it was him. It's just a matter of time until he's arrested." Marcus quickly paid and left the bakery, but the words kept echoing in his mind. The police are already sure it was him. Was it true? Were they really determined to convict him regardless of the evidence? That afternoon, Marcus received a call that left him even more shaken. It was from Carlos, a friend from his factory days. "Marcus, man, I need to tell you something. There are rumors spreading about you here at the company." "What kind of rumors?" "They say you were always a bit dishonest, that you took some small things when you worked here. I know it's a lie, but people are talking about it." Marcus was outraged. "Carlos, that's absurd slander. I never stole a single screw from the company. You know that." "I know, Marcus, but people love gossip, especially when someone's in trouble. I'm just warning you so you know." After hanging up, Marcus realized how a false accusation can escalate to unimaginable proportions. Now they were fabricating stories about his past, creating a profile of dishonesty that never existed. That evening, while he was helping John with his homework, the child asked him a question that broke his heart. "Daddy, is it true that you are a thief?" Marcus stopped what he was doing and looked his son straight in the eye. "Who told you that?" "The boys at school. They said you stole a phone and that's why you can't work anymore." Marcus hugged his son. "João, look at me. Dad has never stolen anything in his life. Dad is an honest man. Sometimes people say bad things about us without knowing the truth. But why are they saying this? Because there was a misunderstanding, my son. But Daddy will sort it out, okay? But how to solve it?" Marcus was beginning to realize that perhaps being innocent wasn't enough. Perhaps the truth alone wasn't enough to save him from this situation. The next day, Marcus had an idea. He decided to return to the building where he had left Ricardo that fateful night. Perhaps by talking to the doorman or someone who worked there, he could find some clue as to what really happened. Arriving at the building, he was greeted by the same doorman from the night everything happened. The man, wearing a badge with the name Antonio on it, recognized him immediately. "You're the driver from that night, aren't you?" "Yes, I am. Listen, I need your help. Do you remember seeing Dr. Ricardo using his cell phone after he got out of my car?" Antonio looked thoughtful. "Look, I remember he went straight up to the office. He was in a hurry, as always, but whether he had his cell phone on or not, I didn't notice. Do you know if he works late? If there was anyone else in the building that night?" "Oh, yes. Dr. Ricardo works straight until 2 or 3 in the morning, and he always has his secretary, Mrs. Paula, who stays to help with some documents." This information piqued Marcus's curiosity. "That secretary, was she there that Friday?" "Yes, she was. She even left after him, as always." Marcus thanked her and left the building with a glimmer of hope. Maybe this secretary had seen something important, but how could he talk to her? How could he convince her to help him? For the rest of the week, Marcus returned to the building a few times, trying to find this Paula, but without success. The doorman said she had been absent for a few days for personal reasons. Meanwhile, the situation at home continued to deteriorate. Anna had secured a few more cleaning jobs, but the money wasn't enough to cover all the expenses. The water, electricity, and telephone bills were overdue, and the apartment owner had given them an ultimatum. Either they pay the outstanding rent by the end of the week or they would have to move. "Marcus," Anna said one night, after another exhausting day of work, "maybe it's better if we go back to my parents' town. Nobody knows us there, you can start over." Running away won't solve anything," Marcus replied, though deep down he knew it might be the only option left. "It's not running away, it's surviving. The kids are suffering at school. I can barely look my neighbors in the eye, and you're wasting away, Marcus. You're not eating right, you're not sleeping, this is going to kill you." Marcus knew Anna was right, but the idea of leaving the city bothered him deeply. It would be like admitting guilt he didn't have, like accepting an unjust conviction. Then, one Thursday morning, something happened that would change the course of this entire story. Marcus was returning from the market when he saw a woman of about 40 leaving the building where Ricardo worked. Something about her caught his attention. Perhaps it was the way she walked, as if carrying a weight on her shoulders. On impulse, Marcus approached her. "Excuse me, do you work in the building?" The woman turned around, startled. "Yes, why?" "Are you Paula, Dr. Ricardo's secretary?" The woman's face changed completely. She turned pale and began to walk faster. "I don't want to talk about this." "Please," Marcus ran after her. "I know this may seem strange, but I'm the driver who's being accused of stealing Dr. Ricardo's cell phone. I didn't do it, and I need your help to prove my innocence." Paula stopped walking and turned to him. Marcus could see tears in her eyes. "You shouldn't be talking to me," she said nervously. If he knows what? Do you know anything about that cell phone?" Paula looked around, as if checking if anyone was watching. I... I can't talk about it. Please, Marcus begged. My family is being destroyed by a false accusation. My children are struggling at school. My wife is working as a maid to support us. I've lost my job. If you know anything that could help me. Paula was silent for a few moments, clearly conflicted. Finally, she said, "Meet me tomorrow at 6 o'clock at the cafe across the street from the office. But if anyone asks, we never talk." Marcus felt a mixture of hope and anxiety. He had finally found someone who might have important information. But why was Paula so nervous? What did she know she couldn't tell? That night, Marcus could barely sleep. His mind raced with theories about what Paula might reveal to him. Could there be more to this story than met the eye? Could Ricardo be hiding something? The next day, Marcus arrived at the cafe 15 minutes early. When Paula appeared, he could see that she was visibly nervous, constantly looking back as if she were being followed. "Thank you for coming," Marcus said. "I almost didn't come," Paula replied, sitting at the farthest table in the cafe. "But I haven't been able to sleep well since I heard about your situation." "Do you know anything about the cell phone?" Paula took a deep breath before answering. "I know where Dr. Ricardo's cell phone was that night." Marcus felt his heart race. "Where?" "On his desk in the office. I saw him forget it there." Marcus was speechless for a few seconds. "What do you mean? Are you sure?" "Absolutely. That Friday he left the office in a hurry because he had a personal appointment. He left several things on the desk, including his cell phone. I even thought about running after him to warn him, but he had already gotten into the elevator." "But then why is he accusing me of stealing?" Paula hesitated before answering. Because the cell phone was no longer there the following Monday. Like this. When we arrived on Monday, his cell phone was missing from his desk. Someone had broken into his office over the weekend and taken it. Marcus was confused. "But if that's what happened, why didn't he tell the police the truth?" Paula lowered her voice. "Because his cell phone contained information he didn't want anyone to know. Compromising conversations, photos, things that could harm his marriage and even his business. So he chose to falsely accuse me rather than admit that the cell phone was stolen from the office?" "Exactly. For him, it's easier to blame a ride-hailing driver than to explain what really happened." Marcus felt a mixture of relief and outrage. He finally knew the truth, but at the same time, he realized Ricardo's cold-bloodedness in destroying an innocent person's life to protect his own secrets. "Would you be willing to report this to the police?" Paula turned pale. I can't. If he finds out I told him, he'll fire me on the spot. And I need this job. I have 2 kids to raise alone. But you are the only person who can prove my innocence." "I know, and I'm sorry about that." "But I can't risk it." Marcus left that meeting with conflicting feelings. On the one hand, he finally knew the truth about what had happened. On the other, the only person who could prove his innocence was too scared to help him. Arriving home, Marcus told Anna everything. For the first time in weeks, she looked at him with trust and love again. "I always knew you were innocent," she said, hugging him. "Forgive me for ever doubting you, even for a moment." "But that doesn't solve our problem," Marcus said. "How are we going to prove it without Paula?" It was a question that tormented them. They knew the truth, but had no way to prove it. And all the while, their lives continued to fall apart. 2 more days passed, and Marcus was starting to lose hope. Maybe he really had to accept that powerful people like Ricardo always won, regardless of the truth. It was then that something completely unexpected happened. Something that would change everything and prove Marcus's innocence once and for all, in a way neither he, nor Paula, nor anyone else could have imagined. But that, my friends, is the incredible thing about this story. You've followed Marcus's desperate fight to prove his innocence thus far, and you've seen how a simple false accusation can completely destroy a family's life. But you still don't know the twist that changed everything. I want to hear from you. After everything you've heard so far, what do you think really happened to that phone? How do you think Marcus managed to prove his innocence? Leave your thoughts in the comments. I want to hear what you think about this unbelievable story, because what's to come will surprise even those who thought they had it all figured out. The truth, my friends, is always more impressive than any theory we can come up with. And then came the moment that would change everything forever. What happened that Monday morning was so surprising, so unexpected, that to this day I still struggle to believe how the truth can emerge in the most unlikely ways. Marcus had spent another sleepless night, obsessively thinking about his conversation with Paula. He knew the truth, but couldn't prove it. It was like having the key to a locked door, but not being able to use it. Anna was in the kitchen making a simple coffee. It was all that was left in the pantry when Marcus's phone rang. It was an unfamiliar number, but this time Marcus answered without hesitation. He was no longer afraid of bad news, as it seemed like it couldn't get any worse. "Hello? Mr. Marcus, this is Amanda. I'm Dr. Ricardo Mendez's wife." Marcus felt his heart race. Why was his accuser's wife calling him? "Of course, ma'am. Please, I need to talk to you urgently. Can you meet me at 10 o'clock this morning at the cafe in the Central Shopping Mall? It's very important." Amanda's voice sounded different than Marcus had imagined. There was an urgency, almost desperation in her tone that deeply intrigued him. "Of course, Miss Amanda, but may I ask what it is about?" "It's about my husband's cell phone. I found out some things you need to know." Marcus arrived at the cafe 15 minutes before the scheduled time, anxious and curious about what Amanda might reveal to him. When she appeared, he recognized her immediately. She was an elegant, well-dressed woman, but there was something in her face that betrayed weariness and sadness. "Thank you for coming," Amanda said, sitting down at the table. "I imagine you're wondering why I asked to talk." "I confess that I do." Amanda took a deep breath before beginning. "Mr. Marcus, I know my husband accused you of stealing his phone, and I know you didn't do it." Marcus was surprised. "How can you be sure?" "Because I know exactly what happened to that phone." Amanda paused, as if gathering the courage to continue. "Actually, Mr. Marcus, I was the one who took the phone from the office." For a moment, Marcus thought he had heard wrong. "What do you mean?" "I took the cell phone from my husband's office over the weekend. I let myself in on Saturday using the key he gave me for emergencies." Marcus was completely confused. "But why would you do that?" Amanda lowered her eyes, clearly embarrassed. "Because I suspected my husband was having an affair. For months, I'd been noticing strange behavior from him. Calls he answered privately, messages he hid, excuses for being late." "And did you find what you were looking for?" "Unfortunately, yes." Amanda began to cry quietly. The phone was full of conversations with a woman, intimate photos, love messages. "I discovered that my husband has been in a relationship with his personal assistant for over a year." Marcus began to understand the situation. "And what did you do with the cell phone?" I was so angry, so hurt, that I threw the device in the trash. It was an impulse, uncontrolled anger. I regretted it later, but it was too late." "But doesn't your husband know that you were the one who took it?" "No. When he realized his phone was missing on Monday, I pretended I didn't know anything. And when he mentioned calling the police to investigate, I didn't think he would accuse someone innocent." Marcus felt a mixture of relief and indignation. "So you knew he was falsely accusing me and didn't say anything?" Amanda cried harder. "I know it was terrible of me, but I was in shock after discovering the betrayal. I couldn't think straight. And my husband said it was just a suspicion about the driver, that nothing would probably happen. Mrs. Amanda, your husband has destroyed my life. I lost my job, my reputation. My children are struggling at school. My wife has had to work as a maid to support us. I know, that's why I'm here." Amanda was visibly desperate. "Last night I discovered that the situation had become much more complicated than I imagined. Ricardo mentioned that the police are close to formally charging you. That's when I realized the gravity of what was happening." Marcus felt anger, but also a strange compassion for this woman who had discovered the hard way that her marriage was a lie. "What do you intend to do now?" I'm going to tell the truth to the police. I've already called Investigator Roberto and scheduled a meeting for this afternoon. I'm going to confess everything. And your wedding? Amanda gave a sad smile. My marriage ended the moment I discovered the infidelities. But I can't allow an innocent man to pay for the mistake I made. 2 hours later, Marcus was back at the police station, this time accompanied by Amanda. Investigator Roberto and Prosecutor Carla listened attentively to her confession, asking several questions to confirm the details. Ms. Amanda, the prosecutor said, are you aware that you may be prosecuted for obstruction of justice? I am aware of and accept the consequences of my actions. But I cannot allow an innocent man to be condemned. The investigator turned to Marcus. Mr. Marcus, on behalf of the civil police, I apologize for any inconvenience. You are completely clear of any suspicion. Marcus felt a mixture of relief and outrage. Investigator, with all due respect, disorder is too mild a word to describe what happened. My life was completely destroyed by a false accusation. You have every right to sue both the accuser and the state for moral damages, the prosecutor said. We will immediately provide an official document attesting to your innocence. When they left the police station, Amanda approached Marcus. Mr. Marcus, I know an apology won't fix the damage that's been done, but I'd like to help you in some way. I can pay your legal fees, help with the bills that are overdue. Marcus was thoughtful for a moment. Ms. Amanda, I accept your help, not because I need your pity, but because it's the right thing to do. But there's one condition. Which? I want you to tell my wife and children personally what happened. They deserve to hear the truth from someone who really knows. Amanda agreed immediately. That afternoon at Marcus's house, one of the most moving scenes I've ever witnessed unfolded. Amanda, with tears in her eyes, formally apologized to Anna and explained to the children that their dad was a hero, an honest man who had been wrongly accused. Your father, Amanda said to Hansel and Gretel, is one of the most upstanding men I've ever known. You must be very proud of him. The children hugged their father, and Marcus could finally cry with relief after weeks of tension. But the story doesn't end there. The next day, Marcus received an unexpected call. It was Paula, his secretary. Mr. Marcus, I heard the truth has come out. I'm calling to apologize for not having the courage to help you sooner. Paula, I understand your situation. I don't hold a grudge. But I want you to know one thing. After everything that happened, I have decided to resign. I can no longer work for a man capable of destroying an innocent life to protect himself. 3 days later, Marcus had a final conversation with Ricardo. The businessman called him, clearly embarrassed. Marcus, I wanted to apologize for what happened. Dr. Ricardo, Marcus replied with a calmness that surprised even him, you are not apologizing for a misunderstanding. You deliberately accused me of a crime you knew I had not committed. I didn't know my wife had taken the cell phone. I really thought... You thought it would be easy to accuse a poor black app driver. You bet that no one would take my word against yours. Ricardo was silent for a few seconds. You're right, and I will bear all the consequences. My lawyer is already preparing a settlement to compensate you for the damages. A week later, Marcus was back at work, driving for the app again. His account had been reactivated with full honors, and the company even issued a public apology. Most importantly, Marcus had received substantial compensation that would allow him to realize his dream of opening his own auto repair shop. The community, which had previously viewed him with suspicion, now treated him as a hero, a man who had faced injustice and prevailed. At the children's school, the principal insisted on calling an assembly to clarify the situation and apologize for the way the family had been treated. João and Maria were once again warmly welcomed by their classmates and teachers. Anna, who had spent weeks working as a maid to support her family, was finally able to take care of the house and children again. I always knew you were innocent, she said to Marcus one night, but I confess there were times when the pressure was so great that even I doubted it. Will you forgive me? There's nothing to forgive, Marcus replied, hugging his wife. You were a warrior. You kept our family together when I had no strength left. 2 months later, Marcus opened his auto repair shop in the same neighborhood where he lived. On the opening day, several people from the community showed up to support him, including some of the neighbors who had previously avoided him. Donna Teresa, the 70-year-old woman who had spread suspicions about him, was one of the first to arrive. Mr. Marcus, she said, tears in her eyes, I apologize for doubting you. I have learned a valuable lesson about not judging people before knowing the whole truth. Mrs. Teresa, Marcus replied, you don't need to apologize. We are all fallible. The important thing is to learn from our mistakes. Ricardo, in turn, faced the consequences of his actions. Amanda filed for divorce and gained custody of the couple's children. Ricardo's company suffered an image crisis when the story became public, and he lost several important contracts. Paula, the former secretary, got a better job at another company and told me she felt at peace with herself after finally leaving a toxic work environment. But the most incredible thing about this whole story is how the truth emerged in a way no one could have predicted. It wasn't through a brilliant police investigation, technical evidence, or witnesses. It was through the guilty conscience of a betrayed woman who realized she couldn't live with the knowledge that an innocent man was paying for her mistake. Amanda told me later that the guilt was consuming her, that she couldn't sleep, knowing a family was being destroyed because of what she had done. I lost my marriage because of my husband's betrayal, she said, but I couldn't live with myself if I lost my dignity too. And that, my friends, is how justice sometimes comes. Not always in the way we expect, not always in the time we'd like, but in ways that remind us that, in the end, the truth always finds a way to come out. Marcus is now a successful businessman, respected in his community, and a proud father of 2 children who learned from an early age that honesty always pays off, even when it seems the whole world is against you. When I began telling you about Marcus, I knew it was a special story, but only now, reflecting on everything that happened, do I realize how profound the lessons it teaches us are. 6 months have passed since the truth came to light, and I had the opportunity to speak with Marcus again about how this whole experience has transformed him. I found a different man, not only because of the financial success he's achieved with his workshop, but also because of the wisdom he carries in his eyes. You know, Marcus told me one sunny afternoon as we watched his children play in the backyard of the new house he had managed to buy, I used to think that being an honest person was enough, that doing the right thing was enough to protect you from the injustices of the world. He paused, looking at his hands, calloused from a lifetime of honest work. But I've discovered that living with integrity is much more than just being honest. It's maintaining dignity even when the whole world seems against you. It's continuing to believe in good even after experiencing the worst in people. This reflection from Marcus touched me deeply because it sums up something we all need to understand. Life isn't fair simply because we're good people. Kindness isn't a shield against adversity, but rather a strength that sustains us when it arrives. Think about it. How many times have we judged someone based solely on appearances or incomplete stories? How many times have we looked at someone in distress and assumed they must have done something wrong to find themselves in that situation? Marcus's story shows us how easy it is to destroy someone's reputation and how difficult it is to rebuild it. Ricardo, with his economic and social power, nearly managed to completely ruin the life of a working-class family simply because he thought he could. He banked on the idea that the word of a successful businessman would always be worth more than that of a ride-hailing driver, and the scariest thing is that he almost won that bet. If it weren't for Amanda's guilty conscience, Marcus might have been convicted of a crime he didn't commit. He could have lost everything: his family, his freedom, his dreams, because of the cowardice of a man who preferred to lie rather than admit his own mistakes. But this story also teaches us about the power of human redemption. Amanda made a grave mistake by taking her husband's cell phone and then remaining silent while an innocent man was accused. But when she realized the gravity of her omission, she had the courage to redeem herself, even knowing it would cost her marriage and her social standing. "I'm not a hero," Amanda told me when we spoke months later. "I did a terrible thing by staying silent, but I've learned that sometimes doing the right thing means destroying our own life to save someone else's. This is a powerful lesson in moral responsibility. We all make mistakes, but not all of us have the courage to accept the consequences of those mistakes when they could cost us dearly." Little Maria, Marcus's daughter, now 7 years old, told me something that touched me deeply. "Uncle, I learned that even when people are mean to us, we have to continue being good, because being good is not about others. It's about who we are." A child's wisdom sometimes surpasses that of many adults. Maria learned one of life's most important lessons early on. Our integrity doesn't depend on how others treat us, but on how we choose to be, regardless of the circumstances. João, the eldest son, developed an impressive empathy for people in difficult situations. "Dad taught me that when someone is going through problems, we shouldn't judge, but rather help if we can," he told me. Anna, Marcus's wife, also emerged transformed from this experience. "I discovered a strength within myself that I didn't know existed," she told me. "When all seemed lost, when even I doubted my own husband, I learned that true love is the kind that withstands the most violent storms." The couple today has a stronger marriage than ever, tempered by the fire of adversity and strengthened by the certainty that they can overcome any challenge together. But perhaps the most important lesson of this story is the importance of not giving up, even when all seems lost. Marcus could have accepted a false confession to end his suffering. He could have fled the city, changed his identity, and started a new life away from it all. But he chose to stay and fight for the truth. "Running away wouldn't be fair to my family," Marcus explained to me. "My children deserve to have a father who fought for the truth, not one who hid from lies." This determination of Marcus teaches us something fundamental. Our integrity is not determined by the absence of problems in our lives, but by how we face these problems when they appear. Ricardo, in turn, lost much more than just money or prestige. He lost his family, the trust of his children, the respect of the business community. But perhaps he lost something even more valuable, the peace of mind that comes from knowing we are people of integrity. "I don't wish him ill," Marcus told me surprisingly. "In fact, I feel sorry for him. It must be terrible to live with the knowledge that you destroyed the lives of innocent people out of cowardice and selfishness." This ability to forgive, not to forget, but to forgive, is perhaps the most powerful demonstration of the greatness of character that Marcus developed throughout this ordeal. Today, when I pass Marcus's shop, I always see a lot of activity. It's not just because of the excellent service he provides, but because of the trust people have in him. Everyone in the area knows his story, and this has become a kind of seal of approval for his honesty. "Sometimes I think maybe I needed to go through all of this," Marcus told me recently. "Not because I deserved it, but because the experience taught me things about myself, about my family, about life, that I might never have learned otherwise." This is a mature and profound perspective on suffering. Marcus doesn't romanticize what he went through, doesn't say it was good, but recognizes that it was transformative. And you, my dear listeners, what do you think of this incredible story? Have you ever been in a similar situation where you were unfairly judged? Or perhaps you've caught yourself judging someone without knowing all the facts? This story reminds us that we are all fallible. We can all make errors of judgment, but we also all have the ability to do the right thing when faced with our failures. If this story touched you in any way, If it made you reflect on your own attitudes and judgments, leave a comment with your opinion. I want to know what you thought of Marcus, Amanda, and Ricardo. I want to know if you believe in the human capacity for redemption and transformation. And if you enjoyed this true and moving story, subscribe to the channel to receive more stories like this. Stories that make us think, that move us, that remind us of the complexity and beauty of the human experience. Because life, my friends, is full of stories like Marcus's, stories of ordinary people facing extraordinary circumstances, discovering strengths they didn't know they had, learning lessons that transform not only their own lives, but the lives of everyone privileged to experience their journeys. Thank you so much for joining me on this exciting journey. See you in the next story.